Welcome, everybody, to Uncle Headless's Magical Mailbag number 7. We've got a lot of mail this week. And are you there?
Yeah. Sorry, I muted
Oh, good.
myself this time. I thought I was like, oh no. I was like, again, I muted myself.
Good. We've got well, okay. I haven't looked at the mailbag itself yet because I like to try and stay fresh. But I got the biggest wall of text on my Instagram from a person who wants to remain anonymous, who has sent me a big old one. So we'll get
Oh,
into
really?
that. Yeah. And it seems really interesting from the description I got in the wall of text. Unknown error. Thank you for joining us. If you could just like and share,
Yes.
tell everybody
Please,
that we're on. I think
like
it's
and share.
yeah, it's so important, guys. I mean, like, I don't want to toot our own horn here, but the occult rejects. Do you want to tell them?
Well, about what? What are you talking about? That the thing I noticed online with the number one on two different sites.
Number one in occult podcasting on two
Yeah,
different sites.
yeah,
People
yeah,
just don't
yeah.
know about us, but the critics love us for some reason. So
That is the. So, I did notice that. Yes, on two different sites, the Occult Rejects as listed as number one for the number one occult podcast. So this is. I was rather happy to see that.
this is the best way to make some occult friends right here. You don't know anybody into it? Throw it out to your friends and see who responds. You might be surprised.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Thank you, Devil Daddy. You're great too. So thank you for showing up. All right, so let's get into our glyph of the night. Nick, you go ahead. Go first.
Oh yeah, that's right. I got the Pelican. I don't know if you want to pull it up, but yeah, the
Yeah, I'll
Pelican
pull it up.
symbol. I have, believe it or not, I actually didn't even know that was much of a thing. The symbol until I had started noticing it. This is sound cheesy, but and again, it kind of fits a little bit with the situation. But I had started noticing a pelican constantly in Elon Musk's rocket photos. Now I know, like, I guess whatever, there's pelicans because it's by the water, so you might get those shots. But I just always started noticing, like, yo, why is there always a fucking pelican in Elon's fucking launch videos? Like whenever there's like snapshots of it, I don't know. And then like one day, Teresa had actually told me the pelican like is a symbol. I was like, I had no idea, and it even gets used by the Catholic Church. So I had like looked into it a little bit, and I was panicking today. To be totally honest with you, I had totally forgot because of so many other things I have going on. I was like, fuck, I need a symbol for the show. I'd even text you. I was like, yo, did you do one? And you're like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm doing mine now. I'm like, fuck. And I thought about the pelican, and so I figured I have a couple of things here I can read, and I know Ellis has got experience with this too, so I guess it was a great pick.
Mhm.
In various cultures, the pelican symbolizes sacrifice, selflessness, resurrection, renewal, reflection, solitude, provision, and abundance. This bird is often depicted as a nurturing figure, reflecting deep devotion and care, including in Christianity. For example, one legend tells of a mother pelican piercing her chest to feed her young with her own blood during times of famine. This story, symbolizing Christ-like self-sacrifice, became a powerful Christian metaphor for Jesus' ultimate act of love and devotion towards humanity. In ancient Egypt, the pelican, known as, I could be saying this wrong, Henet, Henet, was associated with death in the afterlife. It appeared in tomb art and funerary text, believed to protect against snakes and prophecy and safe passage in the underworld. This protective role elevated the pelican to a revered status, symbolizing wisdom and foresight. Even in Native American tribes and Australian Aboriginal clans had their own interpretations of the pelican symbol, mostly linked to the elements. Some tribes saw it as a bringer of rain and medicine, while others viewed it as a harbinger of death or a fire starter. Ancient Peruvians linked the pelican with storms and rainfall. Um, over the time, the symbolism of the pelican has evolved. During the Middle Ages, the bird was primarily tied to religious symbolism and embodies Christ's sacrifice and resurrection. Um, yeah, I mean, it was just some basic things. I mean, I probably could read more, but I don't know. I
Well,
wanted you to tell your experience actually with the symbol. I thought that was pretty cool. What you mentioned before.
this symbol has a lot of significance for me because one of the first times I saw it was in Manly Palmer Hall's book, Secret Teachings of All Ages. And he talked about it there. And then I saw it again when I was going through some old family documents, and I found my great great grandfather's birth certificate from Germany, and it had this symbol on the birth certificate. So it's always been sort of a pan-Christian symbol, but it was used especially with the Rosicrucians and in alchemy. And what's fun about the symbol too is that the pelican in alchemy is one of the primary tools that they always use. It's the beaker that you see on top of the thing with the long spout.
Oh, I have often wondered if. Oh man, I've often wondered if ibis, or even like what Toth is. You know how the way like they bend their neck and put their beak into the water. I've always wondered if that was even like playing off of why it's used as a symbol. That's interesting.
Well, what I think is funny about it is that when this symbol was created, supposedly there was no connection to the New World, and the flamingo. Flamingos will actually feed their children blood from the mother's head. So the father will peck a hole into the mother's head. Blood will dribble down her beak into the child's mouth. So it's like they actually do this. Like some birds actually do this. You know what they're showing with the pelican symbol here. So it's so strange that it would be the flamingo doing it. I don't know. Maybe times have changed. Maybe the pelicans aren't in the mood to share blood from their hearts anymore. Maybe it was something they used to do. I don't know.
Yeah. You know, interesting with the pelican. Uh, like the whole thing with I guess like the shrimp and stuff. Like how they eat the shrimp, the pink shrimp, and that's end up like kind of being the part. Those shrimp are even eating something that ends up turning them pink, and then that ends like it's even a transfer from whatever they ate in the dirt all the way to the pelican. I mean, not the
Right?
pelican, whatever, whatever. Yeah, fucking
Flamingo,
wild. Yeah, the flamingo. Yeah, that's it's just wild.
like the movie Pink Flamingo. What is she eating at the end? She's trying to turn herself pink.
Oh fuck, dude. Yo, imagine it was that deep actually to that. There was like some meaning behind that sick shit. What the fuck? Yo, you
Who
heard me
knows?
talking about that last time. Have you ever seen that movie?
I did not. I've seen other movies by him, but
It's
not the really bad
fucked
ones
up
because
movie.
that's like I saw the movie with what's his name? The guy from Jackass. He was in it. But
I know they did
that
hairspray or hair or some shit like that. One of those.
right, that was a more recent one. It had Tracy Ullman and the guy from Jackass. And this was like his last movie. This is early 2000s.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the one I'm talking about was before that. That even had Ricky Lake was in one of them.
Right. And Ricky
Old.
Lake went on to have a weird career because like, all the talk show stuff, and then she really got famous among mothers with her movie The Business of Being Born. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but it is a very revealing documentary. I highly recommend it. If you have time, look up The Business of Being Born because she just blows the medical industry out of the water.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Ricky Lake did. Wow, I'm
Ricky
surprised.
Lake. Yeah, and her documentary, I think it changed a lot of people's minds about the medical system because what she shows is that you have the highest amount of C sections on Friday before it's time for the doctor to call out. So these doctors are such scumbags that they'll induce a C section so that they can go play golf.
Yeah.
Do you know how many women die during C sections? And it's just like
I mean, not even that, but I mean, I know like even like whatever technology's gotten better, but like you're leaving somebody with a scar you didn't need to give them.
not
Like,
just
I mean,
that,
it's
but
women, especially how regardless of how they got to where they are now, they're so fucking the way they look at themselves. I mean, you think they want an extra scar they don't need? That devastates fucking women. Right? It's honest.
well, to get to the uterus, they have to stack up a woman's intestines on her own stomach. Do you know how traumatizing that is to see your intestines stacked up on the outside of your body.
Yo, fuck that.
Yeah,
Yo, you got to put
it's
me out for that shit.
brutal.
Fuck
It
that.
is brutal.
No, that is insane. I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, the whole thing is just barbaric. I mean, the way we treat women in hospitals giving birth is a crime.
Yo,
Just
weren't you the one who were telling me in something that they did some Jewish thing? They tell you can't even make a sound.
that's Scientology,
Oh, sorry. It was another weird thing. I figured it
right?
was a
No, in
Jewish shit.
Scientology, you're not allowed to make any noise during their childbirths. So they'll like gag a woman so that she's not making noises. She's trying to push this baby out. The whole point of a woman screaming during childbirth is pain relief. Like it actually relieves the pain and produces some catharsis so a woman can get a break as she's pushing. And they just make it more and more torturous by trying to keep a woman silent when she's supposed to be loud during childbirth.
That's crazy.
The whole thing is just brutal. I mean, all of these people trying to get in the way of natural childbirth can only fuck it up. You're designed to give birth to children, so any way you feel like doing it is the right way to do it because your body is communicating to you directly, you know? But, doctor knows best, supposedly.
So
Third
yeah.
leading cause of death knows best. So I went a different direction with my lazy ass. I decided to look into the word symbol as a symbol
That's fucking
because it
awesome.
is right. So it comes from the Greek word right here, uh, symbolon, right? And symbolon mean it's the conjugate of two words, right? Sin meaning together, and bole meaning to throw. So symbolon means to throw together in Greek. That's interesting. So
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, what better way of talking about associations or free associations or all of the rest of the stuff that we do when we're talking about these symbols than sin balon, which is to throw together. You take these interpretations, you throw them together, you see what you got left. It literally is like verbal alchemy. So originally, it referred to tokens, watchwords, permits, licenses. Symbolon is a very powerful word. Now, originally, I heard this story from somewhere. So, symbol meant that when you were having a peace treaty with the opposing tribe, what you would do is you would smash a vase on the ground. And then one side would take one piece of the symbol, the other side would take a piece of that symbol. And as they fit together, that's how you can make sure that both sides are keeping their sides of the symbol or the peace treaty. And so essentially, what you're looking at is symbology is a way of creating this unity, creating this sort of sense of coming together in everything, right? And so it's not reductive; it's always additive. You're adding to the symbol's meaning as you examine it. It's a symbiotic process. So I thought symbol was a good symbol. So there it is.
Yeah, I never knew that the whole thing actually meant to throw together. That's pretty cool.
Right.
That's exactly
And
what it is.
and there's different kinds of symbols. If you take ideograms, for instance, so the walk, don't walk signs, those would be ideograms, right? But then you go from that into, more complex symbols, and then all the rest of this stuff starts to make sense. What they're doing when they're occulting symbols is they're throwing together all these other elements on top of it and making it seem a lot more stylized so that the original ideogram, which means something very specific to the people using it, now becomes more and more ornate. Yes, this is a slaughter shirt.
Yeah,
People love this shirt for some reason. I went to go see them at casino down the road. I thought it was pretty interesting. I'll say that much. So, what do we have in the mailbag tonight?
hell yeah.
How was your week?
Not too bad. I was fucking busy making this Robert Flood documentary. It's like it's all well, not documentary. It's an episode, but it's all visuals, so it's very time consuming to start stringing together like 100 fucking images. You know, and I
Hmm.
like I'm anal, so I want all of them to be 15 seconds long, and they all got to have 2 seconds of a transition. So it's like literally sitting there and like going 150, 155, 2 minutes, 2 seconds. You know, it's fucking takes forever. I actually thought about doing a screenshot of what my program looks like and being a cocky bastard and throwing it up on Twitter and saying, does anybody even know what the fuck this looks like to them? Nobody probably has any idea what the fuck that is. Is he doing that much shit for a fucking video? Not trying to be a dick, but I'm just like, fuck. I'm the only asshole going through all this for what?
Well, there's a lot of editors out there, but they're very quiet about what they do because they
Yeah.
understand that nobody else gets it. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, no, that's why I normally don't say anything because nobody does get it. But it's yeah, you know what the thing is though, when it's done, I'm happy with it. So that's all that matters.
All right. Well, tonight we got another one from Raven Kiefer, which
Nice, nice.
did you see my episode with him on Sunday?
Yeah, yeah, I actually jumped in it for like about 10 minutes, maybe. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I haven't
He's
seen
got,
Raven in a minute, man. That was pretty cool that you had him on.
we got to get him back on the Cult Rejects.
Yeah, I would have
Maybe
him back on. Yeah, even
have
for
him on
some
a
of his
panel.
stories, I was like, "Fuck!" I'd even have him on for his stories because he's got plenty of them.
He's
I've heard
got
him.
so many. And the guy is like hooked into a lot of different, and his show is really great. If you guys want to check him out, get on Twitter. If that's where you're finding me, look up Raven Kiefer. That's the guy to follow. He's great. So
Mhm.
he goes, I'm not sure this is a thing or not. However, my late wife passed over in December 2006. I lost my shorts and in some bad decisions and grief, rough days, and a couple of really rough years. In the last year of her life, she went back to Germany to visit family. I was working a lot, so with the time difference, expense of the cross Atlantic calling, and my schedule, we emailed each other. We only had called a few times while she was over there. Just settling into a new relationship with new possibilities in late 2014, an email from her old email address appeared in my old email account. Said it was a new email. Needless to say, I looked at it for over a week before I opened it. She was talking about my business that I had in the time she was alive, saying that if I applied myself more, put more of myself out and a little more risk for the year, then things would work out and many years would be taken care of. The business wasn't named, but I remember the conversations we had around that time. Interesting fact, the email also applied to my situation at the time the email appeared. That's interesting, you know. I put the email in a say. Let me see. In my situation at the time, the email appeared. In the developing relationship that I was hesitant to get over. Kidding, kidding.
Yeah, she even put a message up for you.
Yeah,
That was
she
cool.
started to do that. She wasn't doing that before, but now she's like, "All right, now it's my turn." I put the email in a save folder. Married now over 10 years. Email was great advice. That email vanished, by the way. I was going to show my current wife that email on our first anniversary. Nowhere in any of my saved files. Email lost for 8 years in the ether or a ghost in the machine. It was from an email address the late wife had, and nothing else was in it when I accessed it because it was labeled invalid or unused account. Life is always stranger than fiction. Only thought about it again because of a new anniversary coming up. Mahiona, favor always. Thank you so much, Raven Kiefer. Yeah, I love stories like that. I mean, it's the perfect time for somebody on the other side to say, look, I already got this one in the bag. We're just going to throw it out there right at the time you need to hear it. And that's exactly the kind of stuff I love to read about because it shows, there are people on the other side who care about us. And that's very important.
This is bugged out actually, that story. It's like you got an email from like the ghost, like the spirit world.
Right? Well, why wouldn't it scale? We talk about people who receive messages from ghosts on telephones and stuff like that. Well, now we're in a different age and we're still getting the same kind of thing. So I find it really interesting. I think that's a great story. Thank you, Raven. All right, and now I've got one. This is the one that I was telling you about. I have to be very careful because she said, well, the person said that they want to remain anonymous. Well, I think
But
that's
you
enough.
already knocked out 50%, but still, who the fuck? We're not gonna know. I'm not gonna know.
Right. I'm pretty sure I encountered a warlock. I genuinely don't know to this day, but this is an account of my own personal experience, as seen and heard from my own eyes, so take it as you will. But I feel very strongly that I did, in fact, have a magical experience, but haven't been successful at finding other people who have had similar experiences, because the magic performed on me, to my knowledge, appeared as not having an element of ritual necessary to affect me. I feel who I encountered could have had either potentially carried Nephilim DNA, which was genuinely incredibly possessed, or was working with the fallen angelic entities magically. I am hopeful to learn what I experienced is known to people in more adept magic circles. Are magicians actually capable of creating these type of ritualist magical occurrences? There's always a ritual. See, that's the
Yeah.
thing. The ritual always starts in the mind. And once you understand, that part of it, when you're
Yeah.
carrying it out, what you're doing is you're completing the loop that you've started with the thought. And it's the completion of the loop that the ritual is all about. So when you're talking about ritual less, it's not because there isn't one, it's because you can't see it.
Yeah.
It's happening inside. So
Definitely
let's see
starts.
here, right? I feel that a part of my experience could be characterized as spiritual psychosis induced by magic performed on me against my will, but I do believe there is a profound element of divine timing with my story that gives evidence to the existence of a potentially all encompassing energy, and may also give evidence to a lesser energy that mimics and forces its version of spirituality on us humans, potentially tricking us into thinking we're serving a different energy then we are seduced, led to believe that we are serving. I apologize if any of these parts are a little dry, as many details become necessary for the scope of the story in the end. Paradoxically, where my journey begins is also where it ends. Hope you enjoy. So, I guess a small backstory about myself. It is not unlike a few other things in this community where I was so crazy, drug addicted, alcoholic, homeless person. For context, I ran away at 16 and wanted to experience freedom as the world of work and school felt extremely unnatural and suffocating. So I was a bit of an escapist, and I try to find that freedom in rather extreme ways. I have a deep desire to seek truth because I saw through the total bullshit and lies of the world at large. This led me to homelessness, psychedelics, and eventually alternative and new age schools of thought. The main part of my story happened to me at 19 in 2016. I was living in blank in downtown blank, basically busking, begging and drinking my way through life. Look at that. I censored that one pretty good. While I was exploring my internal reality, slight, slightly less than your average person because I wasn't working so hard at all this free time, and since I was also sleeping outside with my head directly on the earth, I guess I was really connecting to my spirit in a lot of ways too. I was just very open at this time in my life, very passionate, very open, deeply seeking, and definitely a little naive. So once during my library visits, a very small elderly lady told me that I carried a very special energy and that I should look into what incarnated elementals are, as she thought this was something I could potentially be. Incarnated elementals. What do you know about the elementals?
Uh, I don't know. I'd be totally honest with you. I'm not sure what to think about them. I think they're more of still. Sometimes I just think the symbolism of it's more of the sylphs or like gnomes. You talking about stuff like that and salamanders. Sometimes I just think it's just more of an artistic way to try to explain something else. So, in a sense, I do think people might be a little bit confused. Like if you were to go by like a fairy as an elemental, you may not think that that's the cutest little type Tinkerbell thing. You know what I'm saying? It could be a little bit more different than that. But yeah, I never got into like really like taking them serious. Those things.
Mm,
That's just me. I don't know why. I just never like even with being into planetary magic, whenever it even still came with elements, I just never really got into like the sylphs, the gnomes, salamanders, and shit. Yeah.
Well, I've known people who have had experiences with them, and I think if you're going to describe what an elemental is, I think it would probably be like a distillation or like a unification of a lot of energy with that same type signature. It's sort of all coming together at the same time. So when you get that in the mix, it sort of seems more like a spirit or a ghost that is
Yeah,
now very much on one wavelength. It's
I
all
kind of
that
look at it
stuff
like
is
that sense too. It's more like energy, kind of.
right. So as she thought this was something I could potentially be. And since I've always felt a little different, that concept just struck me, and I went mad searching for what kind of incarnated elemental I was. Was I an elf, a dragon, a fairy? I ate it up and definitely felt like why I felt so different was because of some aspect inside of me was actually non human. So, for context, two super short stories on how that came. I came to the conclusion that I might be a dragon. So, it was a full moon. I had taken LSD, had gone down to the park to find a group of people that I was living with at the time. As time passes, I ended up gravitating towards a quieter character named Blank. He was somewhat hanging out with a group, but also very much doing his own thing. Somehow, him and I drifted away from the group and ended up under the moon together. He proceeded to explain how he was a dragon elf and was currently existing in human form on this plane. He seemed to pause for a moment as if he had a thought come over his mind and say, "Hey, stand here," as he lined me up with a full moon and asked me to put one hand up with my palm facing the moon and the other over my heart. He kind of adjusted the angle of my body towards the moon. Alignment is very important. Alignment is vitally important. So what she's describing is a ritual. Like that's it. What's going on in this dream is a ritual. Uh, Towards the moon and then began speaking in what I understood as elven dragon language. The tone delivery of this language felt like he was intentionally casting some type of spell over me. I felt transported between time and spaces and felt very much like I was existing in the space where fairies and dragons and the like truly exist here in alternate dimensions of this shared space of the earth. And it would make sense why it's happening in a dream because this is the easiest time for parts of the spirit to move through portals. The tone and delivery of this language felt like he was intentionally casting some kind of spell. Yeah, the shared space of the earth. There was a very strong sense of magical energy. I felt an energetic veil pulled away from my humanness that gifted me a moment of inner sight into the truth of my being, where I knew myself to feel as something more like an angelic like being with wings. His hands began to shake as his spell recital came close, and a wave of energy came over my body. The eclipsing of the moment had passed. His shoulders began to twitch, grind, and move around with a lot of resistance and struggle. To me, it appeared like this portal of energy that was opened up through the moon, paired with his spell, was so potent that it looked like it wanted to transform him, and his wings looked like they wanted to come out through his human body. So I was in a super psychological and emotionally abusive relationship at the time when I began researching incarnated elements, and I began to start to resonate so deeply with these descriptions of incarnated dragons from the internet that I began to essentially liberate myself from this abusive relationship because I felt so convinced that this was it. This is why I felt different. It was because perhaps truly I was a dragon incarnate. I felt so strong and confident inside of myself that I began sharing with him exactly how I was feeling. And I remember a defining factor in him and breaking up was that he didn't want to do magic with dragons. So the strange little story of how breaking up with one of my crazy exes went. Incarnated from another realm, question mark. As a short time passed after the breaking up with my ex, and I still had a lot of holes in my understanding, my existence, I still had this deep need to continue to find answers about who I really am. So I went to the bookstore and immediately went to the New Age section where I locked in on the book, The Three Waves of Volunteers and the New Earth by Dolores Cannon. And
Oh,
that book just floored me. Yeah? I've
Dolores
never
Cannon.
read it. I've
I don't
heard
know.
of her.
Oh yeah.
She's got so many books.
Very interesting character or
Oh,
person at
definitely.
least.
I was glued to it, and I truly felt like I was a part of a third wave of volunteers of the new Earth. It resonated so deeply that I was an incarnated starseed here to evaluate the consciousness of humanity. After leaving this bookstore tremendously charged by what I had just uncovered about myself, I was in the thick of my questioning. Just mad, pouring myself at the sky, pleading with the burning of the question of who I am and what am I doing here. I was sitting in the field with on my knees and pleading with the sky to give me answers. Side note, I think it's really important to note that since I'm not religious or had a definite belief in God at the time, I distinctly recall not having God or anything or anyone specific in mind I was pleading to. It was definitely open endedly just crying, begging up at the sky. So I guess that left me super open to anything that I was willing or anything that heard me pleading because I was calling out with such emotional charge. When I later think was alerted to something on the spiritual realm, similar to what people do in ritual to raise energy to contact spirits. I think my energy was so emotionally charged and geared at something spiritual that inevitably that's what happened, and something spiritual in nature came like something answered me. So during my crying, I distinctly felt the uh, something manifest from the sky behind me. It felt like a wisp from the sky, landed in a strong presence on the ground behind me. I immediately noticed this presence, and I don't recall feeling frozen in fear or controlled by this thing in any way. I was just immediately like, nope, and didn't even turn around. I picked all my stuff up and ran inside to the little youth home I was staying in at the time. It just had been a very strong energy. Looking back, I'm unsure if I was able to detect it, if it was really miraculous or anything at all, but it was definitely a fucking spirit or something. I got back in the youth home and felt shook AF, but I couldn't really tell if anything had attached itself to me, like following me inside. I was definitely nervous, but that I didn't really think it had. Fast forward to the next morning when I go to panhandle at the bank downtown to make some drinking money. And so, mind you, I was sitting there at the bank, and this lady with wonderful energy came up to me and gave me this very nice red suede jacket that I loved. It matched my outfit and fit me perfectly. A short and shortly after she departed, I was looking down, reading my book, and I heard this unknown male's voice say, "If you could be a fairy tale creature or animal, what would you be?" And my skin crawled. How did this person know? These were my deepest and most recent questions. It felt too synchronistic, and I felt quite mystified and almost completely dumbfounded. So, considering my earlier experiences, I was in fact all actually already a dragon learning in my mind. But when it came to knowing what to say in response to his question, I just kind of didn't know how to respond. So, without confidence, I sort of laughed, "Hobbit, what about you?" As a very unsure response, because I'm small and he sort of appeared to have a disapproving energy towards my statement, all he responded with was Nephilim. And mind you, I did have a King James version of the Bible that I slept with in my backpack under my head at this point, but I never really opened it, so I didn't know anything about Genesis or Nephilim. So I didn't know what he had meant, so I wasn't threatened by the response. I didn't really think of anything of it until later on when shit went down. Side note, another thing to note was that his jacket, when I met him, was the exact same suede material as the one the lady gave me minutes before meeting him, just as his all black and mine was all red. The colors are important for later on. Our conversation continued, and I was rather entranced by this magical person who appeared to me to be mirroring the deep whispers in my soul. He introduced himself as blank to me. And then I noticed another traveler, a fellow with ginger hair and a backpack, looking rather tired and intoxicated, crossing the street coming up to us. And as he
Is the
slumped
person name
down,
actually blank, or is it like does it mean the person's name is really blank? Because that's like the second
uh,
time now.
I'm editing out all the biographical
Oh,
details.
okay. Oh, all right. No. Because I was just like, there was a blank. No, forget about it. All right.
That's what she requested in her
Okay.
message on
No. I started to
Instagram.
assume that you're blanking out the person's name. The first time I was questioning it because whatever, it could be a last name.
coming up to us, and as he slumped down on his backpack beside me, I remember feeling a little disgruntled at the fact that this drunk person was interrupting this magical conversation I was having. But when this ginger traveler introduced himself with his full name, blank blank, I was totally taken aback. I was like, "We have the same name, dude. My name is blank blank, and actually the feminine form of blank." Lots of biographical detail,
Yo, I
but
literally
you get
just
the
spit my
point.
fucking cigarette out, dude. Did you see that?
Yeah.
I
So
almost burned myself. I fell on the fucking chair, bro.
so this drunk guy is a mirror image of her name and also kind of a mirror image of where she's at. Kind of
Yo,
fascinating. Let me see. Actually, the feminine of blank. We all hang out for a few minutes while blank gathered his strength to get himself down to the park for a nap. And then we split up, and blank and I left towards the water to drink a bottle of cider. As I got up to cross the street with blank, he was presenting me with this little watch that was colored black and red. It had black and red striping on its band. He moved the little dials, laughed a bit as he handed it to me, and said, 420, showing me that the dead watch was permanently set at 420. And then he reached his arm over to show me his own watch, which was colored completely black, was also permanently set to 420. We arrived at the water to drink a bottle of cider, and my first experience while being around him just felt so mystical. There was like this energy that was being cultivated inside of me, and it was
this
incredibly potent.
is this still the dream?
No, no.
Oh, okay.
So she had two
I was like, I never get
instances,
high in my dreams. What the fuck?
right?
I was getting
You
jealous for a
can,
second.
though. Have you ever
I mean,
tried?
probably can, but I've never had a dream of actually getting high.
Oh, dude, it's weird.
I've never had a dream of that.
Okay, if you ever do any lucid dreaming, try and get high in your dream because it's basically you're opening the portal wide open and then you just fall
That's
backwards into it.
wild.
It's crazy. I mean, like, yeah, it's you can get addicted to dream hunt, I believe, which is
Possible, I could see that.
fascinating.
Word. Yeah.
Getting high on your own supply. There's no better way to
Yeah.
describe that.
Like, fuck, I guess you don't have to worry about robbing people to get the next one.
Nope. But
Yeah.
you're robbing yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every time I was around him, I always felt like there was this background program that just felt like feeding all these answers to all these deep soul questions I was asking. And it was crazy because I seldom vocalized what I was experiencing. He was just on it constantly, conversationally, as if he knew what my thoughts were. Telepathy. There was always a very strange air of feelings in myself that felt so spiritually ecstatic and very intoxicating because I began to start feeling like I was receiving downloads of random ass spiritual information since I had met him, like knowing of things that I never even heard about before. And something to note about these random downloads of clear knowing is that they at large appeared to put emphasis on this concept of him being the black dragon masculine aspect and I'm the red dragon feminine aspect. I mean, you got those two colors.
That's yeah. Yeah, still on the same side. Yeah, that's interesting. Red and the black.
It seems a lot more like Kronos and Rhea.
Yeah.
Something with
Yo,
the
for real? For real, how long is this? Because unfortunately we do have another show at 8 o'clock. How much longer is this fucking story, dude?
Going.
No, I'm being serious because we do have another show in 11 minutes.
Yeah. Well, it keeps
I was
going.
like,
We
fuck.
can have
I'm
a
like,
part
yo,
two.
who knows how long this is? Because you haven't looked at it.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
We can have a part two. I think I can find where I leave it.
I was like sitting here, I was like, yo, this guest better talk a lot because I'm already done.
This would be a good guest to have on, I think.
You should.
You know, people who can make this.
I would totally be down for that. If people have like the longest stories, if they were willing to come on, I'd be fine with that as well.
Me too. Me too. But I think she's just getting started. She's got a whole book here, which I think is great.
No,
But
that's great. We already have something for next week, even if nobody emails you.
hell yeah, we can
Yeah.
do. We got to come up with a name. Red
Yeah.
and Black Dragon Part 2.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, so guys, tune in
That's the name
for
of the
Red and
show.
Black Dragon. Right. We'll call it Red Dragon. Red Dragon and Black Dragon are now hanging out at the park having magical experiences. She feels like he's inside her head, and now she's getting these downloads. We can pick this up next week. We got
JJ even to just jump on too to tell his tale next week. Look at that.
there we go. That'd be great. Yeah. If he brings a symbol, he can come right along, you know? I think I'm gonna do that. Everybody
He can bring a Mormon symbol that we don't know about, maybe.
absolutely. We could talk about the 72 elders and the 500 children that they keep around for breeding stuff. All right. So, oh, look at that. Raven Kiefer's here. Thank you, Raven. I already read
What up,
your
Raven?
story. Thank you.
Yo, Raven, you got to jump on too and tell some stories, man. I know you got tons of them. I'm almost positive. I don't want to put him on the spot, but I'm almost positive he even said he had stories of like weird shit in the school that he at schools, like hauntings or just weird shit with that experience.
He told me a couple of them.
That's always creepy to me. That's always creepy to me. Those types.
Right.
Those types.
Haunted schools are just no joke.
Dude. Yeah, or just like public places. That's always kind of like creepy to me.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and we will get to Red Black Dragon Part 2. Raven, definitely hit us up sometime. Thank you and good night.